everyone's seen Nazi zombie films. A few of you have probably seen Nazi vampire films. There's even Nazi werewolf movies. And in actual fact, the director of this movie has even made a Nazi mummy film. But have you ever seen a Nazi Scarecrow movie? We are talking Scarecrows of the Third Reich, directed and written by Fritz. And he has a role in this movie, although he goes there under a different name called Diamond Troy Justice. That's his kind of credited name, but I believe it is actually the same guy. So, I like a Scarecrow movie. The Scarecrows of, I think, 1988 is actually one of my favourite horror movies. So I always like to check out Scarecrow movies where I can. And it brings me to this one. Very low budget movies, apparently around $10,000 budget. And it basically focuses on these Nazi experiments. I think Joseph Mengele was, according to this movie, doing experiments, and he's created this kind of werewolf serum that is given to some volunteers, shall we say, and cut to kind of modern times. One of these volunteers is still alive and is going by the name the Red Wolf, and is a vigilante. But there's also a bunch of kind of like Scarecrow, like zombie types, which have got something to do with the werewolf blood, that are still kind of like knocking around and being controlled by Nazis. And it's up to this FBI agent and a small group of other people to try and defeat them. Let's talk about what I think works in this movie. This will be a quick section. I can't fault the ambition. It's not a good movie. I'm not going to come on to it, but I can't fault this movie for having bags of ambition in regards to, Nazi werewolves, Nazi scarecrows, FBI, vigilantes, gangsters. It's got a fair amount going on. But ambition isn't going to be an entertaining movie, is it? Alone. How is the actual end product? Fair. Well, let's talk about what doesn't work. As you can see, that section was pretty quick. Will this section be as quick? No, it won't. No, it won't. Where to start? I mean, we have to be honest, and we have to say a lot of this is down to a clearly very low budget, and I suspect the $10,000 budget they did have looks like it went primarily on bleach for a lot of the characters' hair dye here, because a lot of them have got bleached blonde hair, and Nazi memorabilia, of which there appears to be quite a lot. Although that's their personal collection, I don't know. Right. So let's talk about the technical elements first. Let's go with that. So this movie is poorly made on a technical standpoint. For me, watching this film, when I bought the DVD, I had to keep adjusting the volume because, it's really quiet in some sequences, very loud in others. So I had to keep sort of adjusting the volume as I was going along. It looks like they, rather than kind of like doing audio mixing, they just use the microphone on the actual. Well, I want to say boom mic, but I doubt they probably had that. They just the mic on the camera, I expect. And as such, you're getting this quite quiet audio from people who are standing further away, louder audio from people who are standing nearer the mic, things like this. I've seen it in one or two other very low budget kind of B movies, so the audio isn't good. Sometimes there's music playing over the audio, which you can't really even understand what they're saying. Yeah, audio not good. Let's talk about the actual picture quality. There's quite a few frames that are kind of just blurry, out of focus. We have a lot of sequences. There's quite a lot of fight scenes in this movie. A lot of them tend to be like zoomed into to not near, so you can't really see what's kind of going on. I mean, maybe this is a way to try and hide the budget, possibly, but it's like a fist fight, and you're just like seeing like an arm and someone's ear, and then like. Oh. So, it isn't filmed particularly well in some sequences. I mean, there's a couple of sequences which I think are probably alright if I'm giving it a very vague kind of compliment there. So, yeah, there's some really odd transitions. It kind of like fades out like it's like a commercial break sometimes, and it kind of starts again. It's just like, what is this? I mean, this is a film. This isn't like it's kind of like some odd transitions. So the technical side of it isn't brilliant, to be honest. Let's talk about what should we have next? Let's talk about the effects. Now, I'm a bit forgiving with low budget effects. Because I'm used to watching low budget films. It's pretty much what this channel does. And to be fair, there's a couple of the Scarecrow makeup which I thought were okay. You know, I've seen about the equivalent in other low budget Scarecrow makeup. And there's a couple of reasonable low budget gore shots, I suppose. But, you know, the makeup isn't brilliant, to be honest with you. The costume isn't you know, the Nazi costuming. I don't know. It's like if we're meant to believe these sort of characters have been around since World War II. Do they do the washing? I mean, their uniforms are all like pristine and stuff like that. I mean, they've been like Nazi scarecrows for donkey's years, but there isn't not a bit of kind of dirt on their uniforms and things like this. It's like you know, there's like. I mean, the masks, the Scarecrow masks look like masks. There's a lot of talk of werewolves, but we only ever see like one guy's with long nails, and that's kind of it. And yeah, a lot of bleached hair as well, a lot of bleached mullets. So if you're a fan of bleached mullets, then this is the movie for you. Yeah, there's some interesting kind of. I mean, they have this action sequence at the beginning. I call it an action sequence. And we have literally like model tanks in this kind of World War II tank battle sequence. It's very short, thank God, but yeah, it's quite funny. I mean, I guess here's on the backhanded compliment. You can kind of watch this for a laugh. You know what this reminds me of? If you've ever watched a horror film, and then in the horror film you're watching, they have like something on TV, and it's normally some crappy old film that they've. You know, or it's something that silly that they've made just to have something on TV which is going to be copyrighted. This looks like the film within the film, like the crappy film that you see on the TV that, you know, when you're watching a horror film and the characters in that are watching the TV. This looks like one of those like crappy, like movie within a movie sort of type films. Anyway, segue. Yeah, so, you know, don't be expecting much of effects. It actually plays more like an action film, really. There's just like a lot of gunfights in this one with like After Effects, you know, muzzle flashes and things like that. People, I mean, let's talk about the choreography. Because there really isn't a lot, we have a few gunfights where people are literally standing out in the open stationary, like just firing toy guns and with, you know, Adobe Effect muzzle flashes at the end and things like this. Just like with like people like walking into bullets and stuff, and they're just standing there not in cover or anything. Yeah, so thrilling action sequences. There's a couple of kind of like fist fights, and that's where you have the problem with the cameras kind of like too close. You can't really see. I mean, they don't look terribly choreographed, to be fair, but yeah, you can't really see because of the cameras. The acting, I'm going to hazard a guess and say these are not professional actors, or they're just a group of friends that have probably decided to make a movie, or, you know, looking at their IMDb, a few movies. But yeah, these they said they're going to be winning any awards. Let me just put it like that. The story, well, it's a confused, convoluted, and incoherent mess. I couldn't really make the head and tail of it, to be brutally honest. It's something to do with Nazi experiments, but we're talking a lot about werewolves when it's about, you know, the movie's about scarecrows. We don't really say that as much. I mean, there was an Operation Scarecrow, and this is what they got out of it. But then we have scenes that are in Germany that features no German people, but like we're meant to believe they're German, but they're speaking English with American accents, and, you know, clearly filmed, you know, in someone's back garden in the States and things. It's just like, oh my God. I mean, right around these problems. Yeah, the story is frankly, like I said, it's ambitious, but it's confused and kind of pointless. And there's just too many like poorly put together kind of like shootouts. There's no real attempt to have any, you know, quote unquote horror really in this movie. There's no ever, you know, this is never going to be a scary film. Let's not kid ourselves here. But there's never an attempt to have that kind of sort of fear moments, if you know what I mean. There's no attempt to have these things attempt to be threatening in any real way. It's just like silly, very, very silly schlock. I mean, this is a film where I bought on DVD that has practically no dimming features. I mean, you know, you can guess where my score's going to be on this one. But yeah, it's not a great film. It just looks like a bunch of people have put incoherent, like, oh, let's make a silly, like, parody movie or something like that. But I think these guys are kind of taking it somewhat seriously. I mean, they could have like lent into the cheesy kind of like campiness of it, but they don't do that. So I've got to mark it down as that. This is like, yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, I suppose you can laugh at it ironically and watch this kind of like, what the hell? But that's clearly not the intention, you know. So, but there you go. Have you seen it? Probably don't bother if you know, if you haven't, I would say. But there you go. Do let me know what you think about this, and I look forward to seeing you next time.